Well, in a moment, we'll speak to the Energy Minister, Michael Fallon, who's in Westminster. But first, here in the studio, Liz Hutchins from Friends of the Earth. We're always going to need some gas, because it's not windy every day. So what's wrong with shale gas?
Well, Friends of the Earth thinks that shale gas is basically an idea put forward by people who can't be trusted with the environment or with our fuel bills, and it's really sending us in the wrong direction. We do need some gas, but we really need to shift fundamentally from a gas and carbon-based energy source for the country to one that is very much based on the vast renewable energy potential that we have around our shores and from sun and sea and waves.
But at a time when Britain's trying to pull itself out of a depression, effectively. I mean, are you saying you would rather sacrifice whatever chance we have of economic growth for the sake of the environment? That the environment has to be the priority?
There is no question that we need to tackle some really big fundamental environmental problems over a really short period of time.
And that's more important than getting some growth.
And one of the best sources of growth is green investment in renewable energy and green jobs, such as insulating our homes and building wind turbines, putting solar panels on our roof. There really isn't an either-or with the economy.
But they're doing that as well today. They've announced a load of prices to make the renewables sector much more stable. You welcome that, presumably?
The government's approach on energy is to have a massive dash towards new gas. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is proposing to triple our reliance on gas, when actually the government's own advisers, the Committee on Climate Change, say that we need to get off carbon and actually have a nearly carbon-free energy source.
Well, the other
by
carbon-free
2030.
energy source is nuclear, and that's the other thing that's getting a boost today.
Yes, there are big tax breaks for nuclear.
So you'll welcome that because it's low carbon?
Nuclear is a fantastically expensive energy source, and it's getting more expensive. Renewable energy has been expensive, and it's getting cheaper all of the time. And the thing about the government's proposals on fracking today is that you're going to talk to the Energy Minister in a minute. He's someone who, in Parliament only a couple of weeks ago, questioned whether climate change is happening, and I think we just really can't, put our energy future in the hands of someone who has those views that are so out of step with the science.
OK, well, let's go straight to Michael Fallon with that. Is that right? Are you doubtful as to whether climate change is happening and whether it's man-made?
No, I'm not. But my job is on the energy side of the Department of Energy and Climate Change, and it's to make sure that the lights stay on and we have the security of supply and a much better homegrown supply of energy, and that we don't rely on international gas prices or international oil prices.
So what do you mean by getting serious on fracking?
Well, what we mean is, given the amount we now know is down there, we need to investigate as quickly as possible whether it's recoverable economically, whether it's recoverable technically, and indeed whether it's recoverable safely with full protection for the environment.
But if so many people, and so many people in your party, it has to be said, are against onshore wind, what makes you think they're going to be in favour of earthquakes under their homes?
Well, they're not going to have earthquakes under their homes.
Well, that's exactly how you get the gas out.
Well, they're not going to be earthquakes. Earthquakes aren't going to be allowed. There is a very strict regulatory regime now in place after some of the initial difficulties with fracking. They have to have a licence, they have to have planning permission, they have to have permits from the Health and Safety Executive, they have to have permits from the Environment Agency, and finally they have to have consent from the department that everything is in place, and these operations are going to be very closely monitored and supervised by agencies like the Environment Agency, whose overriding job is to protect the environment.
But when will it deliver? I mean, we're being warned about blackouts in the next 2 years. I mean, who has mismanaged that? Whose fault is that?
I'm afraid the last government didn't build any new power stations.
That.
They didn't build any new nuclear stations to replace the ones that were going offline, and they failed to make the necessary investment. So yes, we're having to catch up rapidly. Now, that's why we are investing heavily in renewables. You saw that with the publication of the strike prices today.
And subsidising nuclear.
There's no subsidy for nuclear. What we have done is provided a guarantee, a commercial guarantee for the construction, which is available to anybody. We've already provided it for a renewable. No, we've provided a guarantee on the construction for the conversion of tracks, for example, from coal to biomass. These guarantees are available to anybody for the Northern Line extension to Battersea Power Station, for example.
Well, is that funding that you've announced for nuclear funding that they would be able to get without the government?
It's not funding.
Because
it's a guarantee.
Well, the guarantee.
They have to pay for the guarantee. It's available to anybody who has a commercial project and wants to make the financing easier. It's not a contribution by the taxpayer.
Well, then they don't need it then, do they, if it's all commercially available?
Well, this is big scale financing that they can't obtain elsewhere in the markets. They're able to purchase a guarantee from the government. That's available to any kind of project, not just energy.
OK, Michael Fallon, thank you very much indeed. Let me just come back to Liz Hutchins. What do you make of what the Minister said? He says very clearly that he believes in climate change and that it's man-made. Do you accept that?
That's good. That's not what he said in a debate with Tim Yeo in Parliament the other week. I think that fracking is an energy source that is not going to bring our prices down, and there was a Bloomberg energy report recently that said it was a fantasy to think that. And it's also going to be something that sets us on entirely the wrong path for this country. We need to massively get off our hook of carbon, and we need to get on to renewable energy.
Liz Hutchins, thank you very much indeed for coming in.